Wade and Wade reacts.
We're about to react to top 5 strongest power supplies in Gundam by subscriber request. Let's check it out.
You can put the most powerful weapons you want on your mobile suit, but if you don't have the energy to power them, they're useless. Just ask anyone who's ever played any Armored Core game. So today we're having a look at the most powerful power supplies in all of Gundam, and we're starting with what I think is the least overpowered of these overpowered engines, the Hyper Deuterium engine from Gundam Seed Destiny. Generally speaking, mobile suit engines in the Cosmic Era were rather wimpy compared to some of the other universes.
Dang.
Instead of full-on
That's
reactors, they simply ran on rechargeable batteries, meaning that for heavy firepower, they also needed some heavy trade-offs. Either more batteries had to be installed,
Got the door cell batteries up there,
or their operating time would be drastically cut. So Zaft would come up with two main ways to circumvent these limitations. First, they would invent a gizmo that would allow a nuclear reactor to be installed in their mobile suits, something that was previously impossible due to the enjammers that they had developed at the beginning of the war. And secondly, they developed the Deuterium Energy Transfer System. This allowed a ship with the system to fire a beam of energy at a compatible mobile suit to instantly recharge it.
Look at him amazed.
These two technologies would then be combined into the Hyper Deuterium engine, a kind of supercharged nuclear reactor that, in theory, could go on indefinitely. However, in reality, it was still possible for a machine with weapons and other systems that required a lot of energy to completely drain it, something that happened to the Destiny Gundam. Shin was using its heavy weaponry too much, which was then combined with the equally energy-hungry Voiture Lumiere system and the phase shift armor. Maybe you want your infinite energy source with some extra whistles and bells, like the Ahab reactor from Iron-Blooded Orphans. This reactor was the energy source for pretty much every mobile suit in the post-disaster timeline, and also came with some pretty cool features. In addition to creating perpetual energy, they also emitted a particle known as the Ahab particle. In ships, this was used to generate artificial gravity, and they also generated a wave known as the Ahab wave, something that disrupted radio waves, communication, and even guided weaponry. This made them extremely useful for combat, but also led to mobile suits being banned from cities because they majorly messed up systems there with their Ahab waves.
Yeah, that's
Another
crazy.
benefit of these reactors then was that they were nigh indestructible, with even reactors dating back from the Calamity War being in perfect working order.
Oh, damn.
And this was especially important because the reactors were both difficult to make and highly regulated by Gallarhorn. So as a wannabe PMC or a pirate group, you could just go scavenge for these reactors. From Gundam 00 then, we get the Twin Drive System, a development of the already very powerful GN Drive system. So let's start by looking at that. Developed by Celestial Being, these drives were, again, capable of providing the Gundam they're installed in with near limitless energy.
Yeah, I can tell.
But it really was their extra features that set them apart not just from engines in their own series, but from engines in every other Gundam series as well. So just like those other engines, they emitted their own special particle, this time called the GN particle, that messed with radio waves and whatnot. But this time, the engine is made in such a way that it doesn't generate a lot of heat, and even the thrust is taken care of by these GN particles.
That might be the best one.
Which then all combines into making the Gundams extremely stealthy machines. but their main feature is without a doubt the Transam system.
For sure.
A system that envelops the Gundam in a red glow and ups their performance by 3 times. The downside though was that this could only be used for a limited amount of time, and once that time was up, the machine was defenseless. The twin drive system then was the idea to not just use 2 of these GN drives together, which would double the performance, but to have them synchronize with each other, which would square their performance. The big problem for this though was that the 2 GN drives used had to be extremely similar, and even then it was extremely difficult to get them synced up.
Who came up
For
with that
example,
idea?
in order to get the system
what I
to
was asking,
reliably
too.
work with the 00 Gundam, they had to install the riser system to help with that synchronization.
It's that backpack.
Fortunately,
Yeah.
the stability issue was no longer present in its successor Gundam, the 00 Quanta. This machine received 2 GN drives
That's a
that were
clean
purposely
machine right
built
there.
for that twin drive system, making them much more stable. So maybe now is the time to start working on a triple drive system.
Would that even work? Anything is possible in anime though.
What the?
And
Oh, that
now
was a
we've
movie.
seen some
Okay, I thought he
engines with
actually did
particles
that.
that took inspiration
I did too for a
from
second.
the Minovsky particle, I think it's time to have a look at the original, which is the driving force behind the Minovsky ultra-compact fusion reactor, and the mobile suit with the reactor with the highest measurable output that I could find was the Queen Mansa, a massive unit with an equally big
That's
reactor.
a cold suit too.
And while the Minovsky ultra-compact fusion reactor might sound fancy to some, this was actually the standard for mobile suits in the Universal Century, and even dates back all the way to the first combat-usable Zaku's. The simple explanation with this engine is that it used the Minovsky particle to keep the fusion reaction going, creating an endless supply of electricity, and was only 1/5 the size of the older Minovsky Ionesco reactor. Thanks
That's
to
a big
this,
improvement.
the reactor could now be mounted inside of the main body of the mobile suit, leading to the first actually combat-usable mobile suits. But of course, not every Minovsky ultra-compact fusion reactor was equal. For example, the Zaku 1's reactor generated only 899 kilowatts, whereas the one used in the RX-78-2 Gundam could generate a much more impressive 1380 kilowatts. The Queen Mansa, meanwhile, had a devastatingly high
That's crazy.
21,370 kilowatts.
That's a lot of
This
power.
was so ridiculously high that it didn't just dwarf contemporary mobile suits, but could even dwarf later mobile suits as well.
That's
Although
insane.
this is also partially because in the late Universal Century, mobile suits got smaller and could do much more with smaller reactors.
Okay,
But still,
that makes sense.
the only machines in the Universal Century that could hold a candle to this thing's reactor were mobile armors like the Psycho Gundam and the Neue Ziel.
Yeah, 2 of my favorite movies.
Or the Unicorn Gundam, because that thing is just built differently.
For real.
Spec-wise, its
That's
reactor
basically a super robot.
only has an output of a
All the
meager
random stuff this thing can do.
3,480 kilowatts, but as you all know, the Unicorn has a trick up its sleeve. Whenever the mobile suit detects a new type, it forcibly transforms into the destroy mode, turning off the limiters. And with them off, its thrust, sensor range, and power output all become so high that they're immeasurable.
Yeah, it can do whatever it wants at that
Because we
point.
saw Unicorn Gundam
And then
Unit
some.
3, also known as the Phoenix, moving at or close to the speed of light,
Yeah, that's
it's no
crazy.
exaggeration to assume that the other two would also come close to the theoretical maximum.
Oh yeah, for
somehow.
sure.
Therefore, making the Unicorn Gundam's reactor potentially the most powerful one out there. which then also means that despite being one of the most powerful reactors around, we don't really know a lot about what exactly makes it tick. And the same goes for arguably the strongest
I was
reactor
waiting on this one.
that is used in the strongest Gundam. The discontinuous hyper-oscillation gauge collapsing pile engine, or DHGCP, which is installed in the Turn A Gundam. This bad boy straight up gets its energy from an artificial black hole. But
That's
that is
crazy.
about all that we know. One thing to keep in mind though is that the Turn A Gundam that we saw in the series was a nerfed version of the Dark History Turn A, which was a ridiculously powerful unit that was made for combat on a galactic scale. Which
need a series
also
about
had
that,
a beam
period,
rifle
then.
that purportedly had the output of a colony laser.
Yeah,
It also makes for a really good washing machine.
that's his favorite joke.
なあにお嬢様よ
And those were what I believe to be the 5 most powerful engines / reactors in all of Gundam.
Now, we saw what happened to the Turn A at the end of the movie. I think it got destroyed, or it went into some type of different dimension with the Turn X when they had their final clash. But for the fans of Gundam, what happened with the Unicorn? I know it got decommissioned, but did they take it apart, or is it still out there somewhere in a storage unit?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would also like to see the Turn A being active in the Dark History era of the UC timeline. That's what it was placed in, right?
I don't think that's in the UC timeline.
Whatever timeline it's in, I would like to see a Dark History movie or series. Because they hype up the power of the Turn A, but I don't think that the full power of the Turn A has truly ever been displayed.
Nah.
But that's the Unicorn Gundam. I know they say that the Turn A is the most powerful Gundam as far as what the history tells us, but I'm wondering from the view of the fans, which Gundam is more powerful? The Unicorn Gundam or the Turn A? If they faced off, who would win?
Yeah.
That does it for our reaction to this subscriber request. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comment section. Also, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you'll never miss a video from Wade and Wade Reacts.
And we're out of here.
Peace.